Hello and welcome to the Rafferty Mills Connection podcast once again. I am Nick Mills here with my special guest at this time. He's best known for his role as Detective Curtis Lemansky, nicknamed Lemn, on cop show The Shield. His character was often the conscience of the Farmington District Strike Team set in LA, until he met his grim demise at the hands of his comrade and fellow teammate Shane Vendrell by a hand grenade in a thrilling conclusion to the 5th season. Apart from The Shield, however, my guest has also impressed critics and fans alike with his roles in other shows such as Sons of Anarchy, Cold Case, and Saving Grace. Allow me to introduce none other than Kenny Johnson. Kenny, welcome to the Rafferty Mills Connection.
Thanks, man. Pleasure being here.
Oh, I interviewed Walton Goggins a couple of months ago, and it's an absolute pleasure. You are my second Shield guest.
Excellent. How'd you like Walt?
Oh, he's brilliant. I love the guy, man.
He's great, man. Yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
Oh, well, let's get straight into it then. I guess one of my first questions is, it was recently announced that along with several other members of the Shield cast, you were actually going to star in an episode of Lie to Me. Has that actually been filmed, or is that just planned?
Yeah, no, we filmed it probably mid-December, and from the way Lie to Me airs right now, they're on hold, and the network's going to tell them when they run their second half of that season. And then Sean said he would know when it comes on then. But yeah, we already filmed that. That was pretty interesting.
How did you enjoy it?
I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot. When I read the script, I didn't know what part I was playing, and I read through the first 30 pages, and I saw 3 possible characters that I could play, and they were all great. They were just written really, really well, and kind of edgy and out there, and I thought, okay, I really like this. And then I called and I said, well, which one am I playing? And they told me the guy's name, and I'm like, oh, I haven't even gotten to that guy. So about 3 pages later, I get to this guy, and that's my character. And it's very different than anything in the episode, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised. It's something different than I've ever done, and that's why I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, yeah.
It's an interesting challenge because I know you play a lot of these characters that are kind of like the moral conscience, and in this episode it seems to be that you're playing a bad guy. So, how was it? How did you approach it differently from how you'd approach another role, or you just look at it as another project?
Whether he's a cop or whether he's a criminal or whatever, I always go to the humanity of the character, and I go from there. So I never, I look at these guys as human beings, and if they're flawed in some kind of way, whether they're a criminal or not, you do the history and the background of how they got there, and then you try to make them not completely unlikable. So if you can find something that's a redeeming quality in even the worst kind of person, you can play it. And, I enjoy it anyway, I'm not a big fan of formulated TV, because that just becomes about only information. But, something like The Shield or Saving Grace or other characters, you get to do a lot with, and that's interesting to me.
The good thing about it is you've actually been reunited with a lot of the guys that you worked with on The Shield, but also there are some new people, Tim Roth being one of them. I actually had the pleasure of interviewing Tim Roth a while back, and the whole character of Cal Lightman is really insightful. I guess seeing as his background is all the Quentin Tarantino films, how was it to work with an actor like Tim Roth?
I love him, man. Absolutely love him. From Reservoir Dogs, obviously, through everything he's done, Pulp Fiction, whatever character he's ever played, the guy is as raw as can be and as unpredictable. And, he was such a nice guy, man. I went to the set and, the guy was strolling around and he reminded me a lot, which I told him, I said, physically, he just had this looseness about him, and kind of to keep, I think, maybe in the mindset of his character, he was walking around like a body language of Charlie Chaplin. And I even told that to him. I said, you and Holly Hunter does the same thing. She's as free as can be in every aspect of her as a human being playing these characters. And I really, that jumped out at me. And I told him, I said, you remind me a lot of Holly Hunter and Charlie Chaplin. I go, you've got this freedom with yourself that is, physical freedom that is pretty, just intriguing to watch and look at. And he kind of said, well, I almost actually got cast in Charlie Chaplin. The movie, when they made it, they had talked to me about it, and he he goes, when I was on the plane flying from England over the United States, by the time he got off the plane, apparently they'd given it to Robert Downey Jr. So he goes, it was like for a second that I almost got to play that guy, you know. So he was great, phenomenal, very giving actor.
How was it to see all the guys that you'd worked with on The Shield again?
I never worked with any of them.
Oh no, I mean just the. Oh, I see. So you didn't actually do any scenes with them. Oh.
No, mine was such an isolated character that it never crossed paths with anybody else.
Oh, that sucks.
They all worked together. I didn't. You know.
That sucks. You must feel so left out.
It's all right. You know. I mean, I went and hung out with Michael Chiklis and Walton afterwards and talked about it. So I'm like, it's all good.
I mean, let's go to you starting acting. What led you to become an actor?
I was intrigued by movies way back in the day, like old movies. I was really fascinated by like the Montgomery Clifts and the Brandos and James Dean and the early careers of a lot of stars back in the like 40s and 50s. And I was always fascinated by it, but I didn't know it's kind of what I wanted to do. And I lived, you know, back in Vermont, Connecticut, and Boston, and something just brought me out here. You know, a series of events just brought me out here, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And an actor who also wrote a film, his first film, asked me to be in it. And he and I became friends out here. And then when he wrote this thing, he was friends with Stallone. It was around the time I think Stallone was shooting Over the Top, and he wrote a part to star opposite of him in this movie, not Stallone, but Stallone's friend. And, you know, and I just had no interest. I said, I don't know anything about this. I go, find somebody else. And he goes, but I wrote this for you. He goes, I specifically wrote it after you because you're like my best friend out here. I go, yeah, but I just don't want to do it. And he go, you know, so 3 weeks he tried to talk me into it. And I finally agreed. I said, well, if you, you know, have somebody help me learn this, I go, I'll do it, you know, for you. And, you know, for whatever weird reason, the first take of the first scene I did, there was this, I don't know, man, just like this kind of experience that I had. It was kind of almost like time stood still for a minute and something shot through me and said, you know, this is what you're supposed to do. And I knew from that moment the rest of my life would be doing that. And I didn't know why, but from that point I just, you know, that's it. I mean, that was the beginning. It wasn't like I set out like I want to be an actor, but once that kind of hit me, I just started, you know, studying and traveling the world and studying people and cultures and, you know, playwrights and doing as much work as I could. And then eventually I'm like, okay, now I want to go work. And then I started working. So,
I mean, you were talking there about some of your influences and people that you watched. I guess further into your career, did you pattern yourself off any actor or their methods in order to kind of make your method of acting much better? Or?
Yeah, the training. I mean, at the beginning, I definitely tried to grab Marlon Brando, his early stuff. I studied him inside and out, and the same thing with Montgomery Clift. And there was some very natural ability to these guys and some human rawness that was not mechanical and not technical and not like, oh, you know, like I want to be an actor, let me learn a technical way of doing this and then I'm going to work. I mean, these guys seem to come from a different place that was very in touch with, I don't know, like a universal thing. And I definitely, you know, studied those guys like crazy and tried to use a lot of that. And then I was fortunate enough to study with Michael Shurtleff, who was a famous casting director back in the day, and it started the careers of like Gene Hackman, De Niro, like a bunch of people. And this guy really kind of took me under his wing and had me star in a couple of plays that he had wrote. And I don't know, I mean, I just learned a lot through Michael Shurtleff and then Larry Moss after that, who again had studied with Stella Adler and all the people back in the day. And he just had, I don't know, a series of techniques that he learned from all the best teachers back in like the 50s and 60s that he was able to kind of teach us. And then you take what works for you and apply it and go. And I think every actor kind of finds what works for them and then uses that according to, you know, their instincts.
Working with a creative director like that, did he give you any advice that I guess you kind of took on board and that's kind of and you've used it throughout your career?